Good morning. Welcome to the Celtic Way morning briefing live. I'm Tony Haggerty at ahaggerty10 on the Twitter X handle, and I'm joined today by Ryan McGinley at the Ryan McGinley. No Hamish, he's off to Germany, I believe, Ryan, to watch Scotland in the Euros, which starts on Friday. Looking forward to that. How are you, sir?
Things are good, yeah. Looking forward to the Euros happening in just over two and a bit days' time, and then it'll finally be time to watch the Euros, time to watch a festival of football. I'm sure there's football on every day for the next 8 days once the Euros starts or something like that. As I know it's a long time in which there's games on every single day. Music to my ears, looking forward to it, but also looking forward to talking a bit about Celtic. There seems to be inroads in Celtic's development this summer in the transfer window, which is good to hear. And yeah, we'll get into talking about that, but looking forward to watching the Euros and being on the briefing while we talk about the Euros too, because I'm sure that we'll touch upon it as we're doing the morning briefings if maybe there's a quieter day, although I don't expect there to be too many of them because I think it'll be a busy summer for Celtic.
Two more sleeps, Ryan. That's the way I always work it out. So there we go. And then Scotland will open the tournament against Germany. Looking forward to that, as you say. Yes, excuse me. Celtic never sleeps, does it? And we are always across everything, or at least try to be. And it's the transfer window also opens the same day as the Euros kick off, Friday the 14th of June. So we look forward to hopefully seeing Celtic do some early business. But first things first, Ryan, we say thank you to our sponsors, MPH Group and Viceman Boilers. We've got exciting news from their sponsors, MPH Group. They're opening a brand new kitchen showroom in Dunfermline, Fife, with a VIP Vegas theme launch weekend from June the 14th, that's on Friday, to Sunday, June the 16th, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. There'll be roulette games, instant prizes like 10% off services, free boiler services, and a chance to enter a draw for even bigger prizes. And if you land in zero, you can get entered into a grand draw for a 4-night stay in Las Vegas, complete with a helicopter tour. So don't miss out on that. RSVP now at www.launch.mph.group to secure your spot. And we say thank you to them. Now, Ryan, Celtic, are we going to get a goalkeeper? Still two goalkeepers kind of in the frame, isn't there? Peter Vindalji Jensen and Dubravka, I believe, but we're erring towards the former and not the latter. Is that what we think?
A bit of both, to be honest. I don't think it's as cut and dry as what people are saying. Now, we heard reports last night that Celtic have installed Peter Vindal Jensen as their number one target for the summer in terms of the goalkeeping position. So naturally, I thought I would ask somebody based in the Czech Republic if they've heard anything more. So I managed to ask leading journalist Philip Horky, who covers Czech Republic news over there in his native Czechia, and he was talking about the fact that this was rumours that have basically started, or reports that have started in Scotland, and that's not really made its way over to the Czech Republic. That's not saying that these rumours are wrong. It's just that it's getting talked about more in Scotland than it is in the Czech Republic. He was saying that there's been more talk about Martin Dubravka, the latter that you were talking about, Martin Dubravka, who was formerly at who's still at Newcastle. He was at Manchester United for a spell too, also at Sparta Prague in his earlier on in his career, the 35-year-old. But he was saying that there's kind of a calm amongst the Sparta Prague fans, a calmness that they won't be losing their goalkeeper as of yet. That can change. But he was saying at this moment in time that Dubravka is Celtic's number one target rather than Vindal Jensen. These are fast moving. These can move very, very quickly. But at this moment in time, he's not heard anything more about that. For me, this is me just bringing my personal opinion into it. I would hope that Celtic go for the former in Vindal Jensen, a 26-year-old that's started to come onto a game at Sparta Prague. I think he's found a home there and he's got a team that's playing him week in, week out. He didn't have that at Alkmaar, particularly in the second season. So that's the sort of move that I would be wanting Celtic to make. 26-year-old, 6'5", good with his feet, good shot stopper, ticks every box for me. But it's one of these ones that we're going to have to watch and see what happens. But thought I would give a bit of an update on that. I got that message through at 5 to 5 this morning. Now, I woke up a couple of times last night and saw that message was there, so I've been sitting on it for a few hours. But it's It's interesting, and I might even try and get Philippe on to do an article with me, either an article or a video, to find out the inside track on this goalkeeper and of Dubravka as well, because both have been based in Prague in their careers before.
Yeah, I mean, it's as you say, if that's what your man from the Czech Republic is telling us, then so be it. We have to go with what they're saying. But stories come from all sorts of sources, don't they? 26-year-old Peter Vindal Jensen is certainly ticks the boxes for me. I spoke to Thomas Cherney about him. You can read that on the website, and he was saying that he could see him fitting in with Brendan Rodgers' style. He's good with his feet. He's a good shot stopper. And you've spoken about continuity, Ryan. You want a person to be there for the next 3-4 years, something like that. And not saying that couldn't happen with Dubravka, but there's, I wouldn't say age concerns, because he's a very experienced goalkeeper, and we've just had 3 years of Joe Hart, which we really enjoyed, so that's no barrier to Dubravka coming in. But just looking at it, clearly optics, I would want Celtic to pursue Vindal Jensen before Dubravka. That's just my personal opinion as well.
Yeah, I would agree with everything that you've said. And this is not me downplaying on Martin Dubravka. He's a very good goalkeeper, very good Premier League goalkeeper. I mentioned yesterday on the briefing that he single-handedly kept Newcastle in games a couple of years ago, so much so that Manchester United thought it was a capable pair of hands to be the deputy whilst there was injuries to their second choice or third choice goalkeeper. I seem to remember Dubravka. I think it was actually Dubravka and Butland that were in at Man United at the same time, in terms of being that number 2, number 3 goalkeeper respectively. Dubravka's experience in the game. He will be playing for his team in the Euros as well. So he's definitely a guy that's highly rated, even though he's 35 and he's maybe coming towards the downturn in his career. But maybe he's looking for a place that he can play football for the next 2-3 seasons. There's loads of variables involved in this, but I just want Celtic to get the best goalkeeper possible. If they've spotted that and identified that to be Peter Vidal Jensen, then I want them to go all for it. But I don't want this to become a circus and a sideshow. I want this sorted before pre-season, pre-season commences, because it's the most important position in terms of having somebody settled. We all seen what happened in the COVID season when you don't have a settled goalkeeper and you start chopping and changing every game. It makes the defence really nervous as well, because they don't know who they're playing with game by game. So it's important that they've got a player, they bring him in and he immediately becomes first choice. Enough about Benjamin Siegrist and Scott Bain. If they want to stay and be the second and third choice, so be it. But if they want to move on, great, because then it means Celtic can bring in a number 1 and maybe another number 2 as well. A player that maybe knows that he's going to be number 2 but is happy with that role. I just want Celtic to get this sorted as soon as possible so that they can really focus on next season. And once that position's out of the way, then they can look at other positions in and around the defence, because I think there's still centre-backs to be looked at, still midfielders and potentially forwards too. So, yeah, I'm hoping this gets sorted sooner rather than later.
Speaking of centre-backs, they were linked with Flavius Nenelic yesterday, and I spoke to former Hearts and Austrian midfielder Thomas Flogel. It's on the website there. I've put it up in the comment section. You can have a read at that. But he says he would tick a box. He's had loads of potential as a youngster, Ryan, and never really fulfilled that because he played for Real Madrid B team and Bayern Munich B team. He was with Nicholas Kuhn, wasn't he, at Bayern Munich for a spell? So there would be a familiar face in the Celtic Park dressing room if he decided to sign for Celtic. But he was saying he's very athletic, he's very fit, he's fast, which is good news to me as a centre-back. I like all that. And Thomas was saying that everybody in Austria has been very aware of him for a number of years, and he just needs to kick on now. And it's possible that could be Celtic Park. And they're talking about the Champions League as well, playing there, because this team, Red Bull Salzburg, never won the title, and they're in the qualifiers, as opposed to Celtic being straight into the league setup. Sturm Graz won the title, and he said that's obviously something that is in Celtic's favour in terms of trying to sign players. So you can have a read at that on the website. Thomas speaks openly and honestly about him, and he said he'll get game time at Euro 2024, And I guess Celtic supporters will be interested in running the rule over him for themselves, Ryan, when you see him in the flesh, when the tournament starts for real on Friday.
Yeah, and hopefully he's signed by that point if he is coming to Celtic, because if he's not
Yes.
signed, this all depends on Salzburg, to be honest. They've got the option to buy. The player made that move in January from his team in Italy. And Salernitana, yeah, it's easier for you to say than me. I really struggle with that name. I won't struggle if Celtic get further linked with him and forced to learn the name. But for this point, I cannot. It's one of those names that I just cannot get my head around. It's a really difficult one to get off the tip of your tongue. But he made that move in January to Salernitana. Is that right?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, Salernitana.
Yep. I would expect if he made that move with the option to buy, he was keen on joining them permanently after that loan deal. Now, I know that they aren't in the Champions League proper and they'll need to qualify, but they're one of the teams that I would expect to get through qualification pretty easily, because they're always quite well equipped to deal with whatever Europe throws at them. It's a surprise in itself that Salzburg haven't won the Austrian League, and more an achievement to Sturm Graz, because it's a bit of a monopoly over in Austria with regard to the league. Salzburg 9 times out of 10. It's a bit like Celtic with the Scottish Premier League. They win the league 9 times out of 10. Just with the strength and depth that they've got, with the scouting network, with the that Red Bull Academy, or the Red Bull sort of scouting system in which they look at players from all continents, not just in Europe but in Africa as well, in Asia too, South America, North America. It's far encompassing, the way that they look and identify for talent. And it's very, very impressive as well. And it's something that I want Celtic to try and replicate the best that they can in terms of looking at every continent for players. Difficult to do so when those roots are already so deep in terms of the scouting. If there's a good player in Africa or South America, etc., then Red Bull have probably already found them and they're already in their ranks. Look at yesterday, Benjamin Sesko. He was a player that they'd spotted, Salzburg had spotted. He made the move to Leipzig. He was now getting linked with Chelsea, Arsenal, etc. He's signed a new deal till 2029. He will probably go in the region of 60 to 70 million pounds now. That's their system and it works. And he came from Salzburg to Leipzig. Then he'll make the money for Red Bull. It's a successful model, a difficult one to replicate, but it'll be interesting to see how other teams do that. But just back to that point, it'll be interesting to see if they actually take up that option to buy for the player. I would assume that they would, and this becomes a bit of a non-story in a couple of days. But if they don't, I want Celtic to be all over this. He's got the right attributes, the right history, because he's played for Bayern Munich, played for Real Madrid, albeit they're B teams. But you're not a bad player if you play for their B teams, because these teams spot talent very, very early. Not everybody makes it. Fast, physical, strong. He ticks all the boxes for me.
He's also captain of the Austrian under-21s as well, Ryan. And he was captain of the Bayern Munich B team as well. So he's got a pedigree, certainly at a lower level, hasn't he? But he's been a standout at a lower level. That's what they've been saying. And that Thomas Vogel was telling me that he just now needs to kick on, whether that be with Salzburg or Celtic. Time will tell. Monty coming in and saying, should Celtic be looking at players from Sturm Graz then, because they won the title?
They do have a Scotsman in their team, and Max Johnson, who was at Motherwell the season before. So he had a great first season away from his boyhood club, you could say. I don't know if he actually supported them as a youngster, but his first team, the team that he made his breakthrough, to make that move to Sturm Graz and to understand that they were a team very much on the up. It hasn't worked out for every player that's went to Sturm Graz, because the season before, Albion Ayeti went and he failed to set the header alight in Austria. So good move for him. Obviously, Sturm Graz are a team that have really achieved good things. I think they're already in the Champions League. They will be for next season if they've secured that qualification. They could be a team that Celtic face due to the Swiss model. That's an exciting proposition to have as well.
Interesting that Celtic draw Sturm Graz. I'd like to see that, to be fair. You'd maybe fancy your chances against a team like that as well. But yeah, I mean, the manager's banged on about quality, Ryan, and obviously the transfer window opens on Friday. Lots of people, saying Celtic should have signed, players by now. But, like every negotiation, it takes time and deals or can be sometimes long protracted affairs. I don't really pay attention to what other clubs are doing in terms of signing players, but lots of Celtic supporters are seeing the club from the other side of the city signing players, and they're saying, why aren't Celtic doing the same thing? But I think Celtic have to do their business prudently, and if they're taking their time, then it seems to me that they're taking their time to get the right quality and the right players that the manager wants. I'm hoping that is the case. As I said yesterday, if we're a week from competing in our first pre-season game and nobody's in the door, then I will start to worry and panic and have things to say. But there's still a lot of time for Celtic to bring in the quality that's required for next season.
Yeah, but the thing I would say about and I do see this across social media in which people are worrying about the fact that other teams are making signings. I think you'll find that other teams need to make signings because they've not won anything the year before, and they need to make early signings in order to try to bridge that gap. They'll also have Champions League qualifiers in a couple of months' time as well, so they need to bed in players quicker than what Celtic do. I would much rather Celtic do their business early, but it's not essential because they don't have another game for the best part of 2 months. What we're talking about, the end of July, start of August for games to be played. So yeah, I'm not as worried that Celtic aren't making signings. I'd much rather they identify players. I'd much rather they bring in a recruitment chief to begin with as a head of recruitment,
I would like
they've
that.
got. And the fact that hasn't been done yet is a tad bit concerning. But I'm willing to go with it if they're looking for the best candidate. If they're trying to find somebody who's not as connected to the club as maybe other candidates have been in previous years, which is something that I would personally look out for, because it's a tough sell if you're bringing in somebody with the same surname as certain executives or as former players or former managers or whatever. As much as I'm fine with under 18 coaches being former Celtic players, because they'll hammer in that winning mentality. I know we've not really spoke about that much, or at least I haven't spoke that much about Johnny Hayes, but I think that's probably a good appointment in that. The fact that he's a born winner. He's won things with Celtic before. He knows the landscape. He'll have also been in and around that successful youth team that Aberdeen have currently got at their disposal that have been winning things. So why not try and get that knowledge and bring it to Celtic as well? The fact that he's a former player is a bit of a bonus too, but by all accounts he's a very top young coach and he will be going places in his career, so that's something exciting. But the recruitment chief, very, very important. Hope that gets sorted sooner rather than later. But I'm not too concerned at this juncture. The fact that there's not been that many signings. We know there's signings in the pipeline, and yeah, let's await them with open arms by the time that they do come to the club.
Plunge McNugget coming in. Hi Plunge, how you doing? Quality that's required. We said that last season, Tony. We did say that, and it didn't happen, which is why what happened during the season happened. Thomas Gallagher, who's to say there has been negotiation already, etc., and as soon as the window opens, announcements are made? I'm feeling like that myself, Thomas. I've got to be honest. Maestro 95 saying as long as Celtic sign quality to add to what they already have, step it up. We're hoping. And Brown Warrior, morning Brown Warrior, how are you doing? Regular contributor, thanks for that. I think Celtic will get the Bernardo and Idah deals done first, and the others will follow quickly after. And that's what he's saying to you and I, Ryan. Do you go along with that? Is that your school of thought as well?
I go along with half of it. I've got a funny feeling that Idah won't sign for Celtic, just given the 4 years left on his deal. That's a big hurdle to overcome, in my opinion, because he's contracted for another 4 years at Norwich at a Championship club, which means that if Celtic do want the player, then they'll probably have to pay a premium amount in order to get that player. Now, then it goes to the point, is he worth paying a premium price for? A lot of people say yes. I'm probably somewhere in the middle. I don't know if I'd be going spending £9-10 million for a player. I know that he's acclimatised well, and I know that could be maybe an unpopular opinion with some, but I think Celtic have got to look at this from all angles and see if they can get not a better player, but maybe better value for their money. I know there's a player that's been scoring goals. He scored in the cup final. He's a big player. He's going to get better. But do you want Celtic to be breaking the bank? That's up to other people to decide, I guess. But I think it's going to be difficult to bring him in because of the fact that he's got 4 years left in his deal. I wasn't actually aware of the fact that he'd signed for that long. I thought it was maybe a couple of years shorter than that, in which case it was maybe easier to get the player through the door. But Norwich, new manager, he might see Idah has been central to his plans, which could put a spanner in the works already. If Idah wants to stay, I know he's made grumblings about maybe wanting to stay at Celtic permanently. If that's the case, then it's a bit easier for the player to make grumblings to want to stay at the club. But you're at the mercy of the new manager, and with 4 years left in his deal, you're going to have to pay a premium price in order to get the player. Ideally, I would want him to stay at the club, but only if it suits both sides. And if Celtic can get a good deal out of this, then I'm all for it. But I'll let you have your say on this, because I know you'll probably be desperate to get Idah at any cost.
I don't say any cost, but I still think he's worth 7-8 million quid, Ryan. I've got to be honest. And I say these things happen a lot, with players who are contracted to parent clubs. I don't think Norwich would want an unhappy player at their club. I think he's desperate to come back to Celtic. I think he's been told to go back, jump through Norwich's hoops for the time being. I know they've got a new manager and they'll want to have a look at him. I get all that, but I think he does a player Celtic want. I think he's a player that Celtic need. I think he's a player that the manager desperately craves. And I just think that, as I said before, deals take a long time to, it has to suit every party. And I think Celtic will be busy in the background trying to conclude this deal. And I disagree in the sense that I think Idah will be a Celtic player come the summer. Just a question of when.
Oh, I hope so. I hope so too.
Yeah. No, you're not saying you don't want him to come in. In terms of getting somebody better, I guess that's down to the recruitment department, isn't it? If they can identify somebody better, people obviously saying Majowski as well, things like that. But I just think the guy's tried and tested and fancies it up here, and the manager wants him too. So, as I say, I just think he's been told to go back, bide his time, because he said all the right things the other night when he was asked the question about when he was playing for the Republic of Ireland. He was asked about Celtic, and he just said, "I'm back at my parent club. I don't know what's happening," So, and I just think, Les D coming in there and saying, if you put in a transfer request, it would have to be looked at by Norwich. I think player power, you can force that kind of thing. Celtic will have to pay a premium rate, but I think 7-8 million quid for as a layout on Adam Idah, I wouldn't. As I said before, I wouldn't balk at that. And I think he scored some. Every goal he scored was an important goal, wasn't it? It was meaningful to Celtic. So, and I just think that the manager really, really likes him and reckons that he can turn him into a player. So, I don't think it's a dead deal or dead in the water or a done deal by any stretch at this minute. I think there's a lot of talking to do, a lot of protracted negotiations, but that's what happens. And I would be very surprised if Adam Idah doesn't become a Celtic player in the summer. But I tell you what, if he doesn't, then I would like to think that they were scouting alternatives right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And they'll need an alternative, because
Correct.
It looks as if O will be leaving the club to join Genk in the Belgian league, which for me, and I know I've kind of moved on to the topic, but it's kind of similar in the same way that they would both be vying for the same position up front. Idah and O wasn't really much of a competition with the two of them in the second half of the season, because Idah came into the club, and by that point he was the number 2 striker. Sometimes the number 1 striker was fancied in that title-winning game against Kilmarnock. But O looks as if he's going to be moving on to pastures now. A decent source last night was reporting that he was interested in a move to Belgium. Be interesting to see if that will be a permanent move or a loan deal with a view to a permanent. What would be your? I know I've kind of turned it and I've kind of made myself the host for this question, but if it was you playing a bit of devil's advocate, what would you be wanting O's situation to be? Would you want that to be a permanent deal, or would you want that to be a loan with an option to buy, or just a straight off loan and then review the situation next summer? Because by all accounts, and he could go out and have a tremendous season in Belgium. I've seen players that have failed at Celtic go out and have good seasons in Belgium. Look at Bio, for example. He had a good season in Belgium after leaving the club. So that potential is there. What do you see as O's future?
I don't know. You sort of saw glimpses of O, but he's just failed to convince, hasn't he? And I don't know. I would maybe certainly put him out on loan I don't know about the option to buy, because you would want to give him a chance to play regular football over the course of a whole season and see if he's got something to offer. But yeah, I like everything else. I think he falls into the kind of Lager Bielka and Navovsky category. I just don't think the manager fancies him, does he? So, and I think if the manager doesn't fancy, then the writing's on the wall, isn't it? Got to
I've
be
got to be
honest.
honest. I think his card was marked very, very early on in the season. Now I know that he did get opportunities to impress. He scored a big goal against St Mirren. Seemed to
Yeah.
only score against St Mirren. That seemed to be the team, and he had that double against Aberdeen. But apart from that St Mirren goal
He
and
never really
the
kicked
header,
on. He never kicked on from there, Ryan, did he? You look at somebody like Adam Idah, who came on against Motherwell, turned the game and really kicked on and showed you what he had and showed you what it was all about. O had that chance after the St Mirren game to do that, and he just didn't do that. And for me, you just can't have a striker like that at Celtic. They've got to be on it all the time. And, yeah, we were talking about Kyogo not being on it sometimes, but, he's still a big game player and he still produces big game goals and performances. Adamida did the same. You just didn't feel that, you didn't have that vibe with O, did you? I
when
didn't,
he came on,
got to be honest.
I've got and this may sound extremely harsh, and I know he did score late goals. But whenever O came onto the park, I didn't expect him to score. Whereas if you're bringing on Idah late on in the game, you're thinking he's got a part to play in the conclusion to this game. And more often than not, he did score goals. You felt that when when Idah came on against Rangers in the Scottish Cup final. You thought this is his game, this is his moment to truly shine, to truly show that he can be a bona fide Celtic player permanently, and I think he passed that audition with flying colours. Regardless of what you want to say about the price, I think he does fit as a Celtic striker, and he will get better if Celtic do decide to take the plunge and sign him permanently. I'd never got that confidence with O. Unfortunately, I felt as if he, apart from the goal against, I think it was goals against Hibs and St Mirren, he would score goals maybe at the end of games that would maybe not seal games, but maybe put an exclamation mark on the scoreline. Idah scores more important goals than O for me, and that's big. And whenever he started games, I think he failed to impress and he flattered to deceive quite a lot of the time. So maybe a loan deal could be the best thing. A straight loan, no option to buy, that can be negotiated. Much like Adam Idah, because these teams do negotiate. It's almost like dynamic pricing, in which the price goes up with how well the player plays on his loan deal. I think that he could be a success in Belgium. He's that sort of player. There's been worse players that have went over there, as I made the point about Bio previously, that have made an impact in Belgium. Sometimes a change of scenery can be the best thing. You've got to remember this time last year, a lot of people were raving about they were excited for what he could become under Ange Postecoglou. But like I said at the start of this point, I think his card was marked early doors by not disclosing that injury to Brendan Rodgers in that friendly. You've got to be honest with these sorts of things. I don't think Brendan Rodgers forgets these things so easily. When it's quite a selfish thing actually, because he continued to play on and he further aggravated his injury. But at that point, he was unavailable to start games or make an impact off the bench. And you've got to make an impression early doors. Kyogo was the one that was the only striker in that position at the start of the season. That could have very easily been O taking that opportunity. I just think that he squandered that at the wrong moment. And as young players, you're going to do that, but it could cost him in the long run.
Yeah, I just got to be honest. If you're giving me a choice, Adam Idah or O, I know who I would trust to lead the line. It's certainly not O. So yeah, I hope that Celtic sign Adam Idah, and I hope that O goes on loan and see what he's got, and see if he can come back to Celtic, see if he can bring something to the table. But my personal jury's out on O big time, and I think, like the manager, I don't particularly fancy him either. But you have to make a decision on these guys, don't you? So lots of comments coming in about Monty. Idah's a leader, Kyogo's a leader, CCV is a leader, starters, leaders, fighters. Yep, I agree with that. Anything else taking your fancy, Ryan? Celtic transfer wise, or just Celtic wise?
I think transfers are the order of the day, or the order of the week. It's going to be like that until the start of pre-season, when we've got something tangible to speak about. Other than, yeah, absolutely. Scott McKenna with some interesting comments last night as well, saying that he's open to anything with regard to offers. I would expect him to say that, considering he doesn't have a club at the moment. He's a free transfer, so I wouldn't expect him to be closing any doors. But he talked about Celtic and Rangers. He's a player that Brendan Rodgers has liked for a long time. I'm intrigued by this, and Brendan Rodgers has been very, very public not public in terms of coming out and saying that I want to sign this player, but if you read anything into reports over the past 5-6 years, especially in the years when Brendan Rodgers has been in charge of Celtic, both in his first spell and then in January last year, his name always gets linked, and there's no smoke without fire with him. Brendan Rodgers is a massive fan of Scott.
Stephen Fletcher of his day, is it? Yeah,
he's a massive fan of Scott McKenna.
Fletcher, yeah.
And I've got to say, in his time at Aberdeen, I was a massive fan of Scott McKenna too. I think he's an imposing figure. He's quite quick on the ball. He's a good defender, 1v1. For a free transfer, if there was bringing in Scott McKenna and someone else, if you were to bring in two, because I think Celtic will need at least 2 centre-backs, maybe even 3 in the summer window. If you were to bring in Scott McKenna and Danilic, then I think that would be real strengthening in that position. If that was the case, then you'd probably need to let go of Lagerbielke, Kobayashi and Nawrocki. But a small price to pay, I guess, to bring in more quality in that position. It's all about accommodating Carter Vickers for me and putting in someone that's maybe not of the same standard, but of someone who can maybe potentially get to that standard. He is the star in this team defensively. It's about time there's somebody next to him who can get to that level. I watched Scales last night in bits for Ireland against Portugal, and he had a bit of a torrid time against 39-year-old Cristiano Ronaldo, who shows that he still has something in his locker, especially coming up to this Euros. There's a couple of times in which he really get done by one of the legends of the game, despite his age. So not as a slight on him. I just think that Celtic need to do better in that position, and they need to bring in somebody that's going to instantly command a first team place alongside Cameron Carter-Vickers. That's what I'm wanting in this window, and I'm sure that's what Brendan Rodgers wants too.
Wrote it the other day. I want a Cameron Carter-Vickers clone, or as close as damn it to Cameron Carter-Vickers, but somebody that complements him. Yeah, would Scott McKenna be that man? We don't know, but he is imposing. He's a big guy, and from what
he's a danger from headers, from corners.
Yeah, listen, and he also said he wants to get the Euros over and done with before he talks to anybody. But yeah, if Brendan, listen, let's put it this way: if Brendan Rodgers still likes him, and wants him, then there is no impediment to getting him, really, is there? He's available on a free transfer, and I wouldn't imagine. I mean, he'll command a decent enough wage, but it won't be something that's out with Celtic's financial parameters, is it? So the onus is on Celtic. Well. Yeah, the onus is on Celtic here. If it's a player that the manager wants, he's available, and they can afford them, then Celtic will sign him. So, yeah, and I think we're all in agreement that Liam Scales had his breakout season, but moving forward, we feel that he'll be more of a squad player and utilised if and when that kind of horses for courses scenario. So we shall see what happens. But yeah, I agree. I still want Celtic to ramp it up in terms of quality in their central defence, because you just don't see any way. Well, Gustav Lagerbielke is going to leave, Kobayashi's going to leave, and you just don't see how Nawrocki's going to force his way into the team, regardless of his public proclamation saying he wants to fight. Just think the manager, again, is another one that has cards marked, and he just doesn't fancy him, does he? Let's be honest, and that's the way it works out for footballers sometimes.
Yeah, and it's a peculiar one with Nawrocki, to be honest, because it's a player that you can actually attribute Brendan Rodgers to, because he watched him, made the point numerous times that Brendan Rodgers actually came up against him for his Leicester team against Legia Warsaw, so he was arguably man of the match in that game, looking back on it, as a 20-year-old playing in defence. For whatever reason, I think injuries are a big part of it as well, the fact that he's not been available for large stretches of the season, but he was available towards the end of the season. Scales was still in the team, despite Scales making errors in games that could cost him. I just think it's pre-season's going to be very interesting for him. I don't think he's necessarily out the door just yet, but if he's going to make any sort of impact and force his way into plans, then he's got to do it in the summer. He's got to do it early doors in the summer, but he won't be alone. There will be more centre-backs coming into the club.
He's one of those players, Ryan, that certainly looked the part, tall, looked an imposing figure, but just didn't play the part, did he, when he got the chance? You have to be brutally honest in your assessment of that.
A lot. He was slower than what I thought he was as well. I thought at the start when Celtic signed him, he looked like he had a bit of recovery pace. I guess when you're replacing Starfelt, and I know that Lagerbielke was supposed to be replacing Starfelt, more on that probably with the fact that the agent already had a player lined up when Starfelt. That Celtic cannot continue to operate like that. That's small club mentality, getting your just replacement in of the recommendation of an agent.
Yeah,
it's actually quite lazy, if you ask me. And I don't want Celtic to be doing that. I want them to be scouting their own players and bringing them in rather than the recommendation of an agent, because your scouts will know better than an agent, because your agent is looking for the best for their player. I just think
Celtic have had their fingers burnt before using one particular agent, haven't they, for their source of recruitment?
It was a 50-50 with Dudu Dahan is what I would say, because there were some successes. I'm not exactly sure that they'll go down that road again with Dudu Dahan, just due to current factors. But yeah, there were some good players that came through him, but there was also some duds too.
Yeah, not denying that. But yeah, as you say, I keep saying it, and I'll say it till I'm blue in the face. Got to act like a big club. You know, I think the manager sees that too. Want Celtic to start acting like a big club again and showing that big club mentality. You're going into a big club competition. You're in with some big hitters in there, big boys, football table, and you want to enhance your own reputation at that level too. So, you know, be the best you can be a big club, be ambitious, have big ambitions to do something in this tournament, and also be ambitious in terms of the players that you're bringing to the club. And as we've spoken throughout this week and last week, the heights and strengths and, you know, of Celtic's ambitions will be measured by this transfer window in particular. And we will find out exactly where the club see themselves, or where Brendan Rodgers sees themselves going into this season and going into this new Swiss model Champions League.
Really looking forward to the Swiss model of the Champions League too. There was one more point that I wanted to make before we finish off the show today, and it was just an interview that I conducted last week, but I put it out yesterday afternoon. It's a player that I'm really excited about, and I hope makes the breakthrough at least this summer in pre-season. If he's going to go out on loan again to a championship team, then so be it. But I want to see him make some appearances for the first team in pre-season. It's on Bosun Lawal. I was speaking to his former coach, Omar Riza, who's just left Watford. Actually, he was the first team coach, but previous to that, he was the academy coach, and he worked alongside Bosun Lawal in 2020-21 before he left for Celtic. Really insightful interview that's on the website if you want to have a wee look at it. But he's a player that I'm desperate. If there's any young player that I want to see break through, alongside Daniel Kelly as well, I would say, because I want to see more of him in the years to come. Hopefully his contractual situation is sorted out sooner rather than later, whatever way that may be. If he moves on, so be it. Or if he signs an extension, absolutely brilliant. He'll stay at Celtic for the long term. But I want to see Bosun Lawal. He's the perfect profile for what I think Celtic need, especially in the coming years. That destroyer role, the number 6 role, the only thing is, do the club see him as a defender or do they see him as a midfielder? For me, it's got to be the latter. He's got to be a midfielder. He's got the freedom when he plays in midfield to roam, and he's very, very mobile on the ball. So that's something that I want to see in the coming weeks and months. Hopefully he can fight for a place, and he can show enough in pre-season that Brendan Rodgers keeps him around.
He might be the surprise package of pre-season, Ryan, and he might get that chance. Yeah, and you know, you'll never know until you get the chance. And he's coming off the back of, well, he was Fleetwood's Player of the Year despite them getting relegated. He's coming off the back of lots of people bigging him up. So this, again, you go back to the kind of now or never. It's the now or never for Bosun Lawal this season, I think, as well. But I think Celtic supporters, as much as they'd like to see him make an impact, they're wanting quality signings as well, Ryan. And amongst that too, and I know Plunge might not come in and say I said the same last season. I did say the same last season about Celtic, but I thought last season they would arm the manager to the teeth. That's why he came back. But I think he's earned the right to be armed to the teeth this season. And again, we will find out just how ambitious Celtic want to be, both domestically and abroad, with this transfer window. There is a lot hinging on this transfer window. And I think, and I said the other day, I think the fans deserve better, because you're going to be paying upwards of what for your Champions League package. It's going to cost a lot of money, isn't it? For your Champions League packages at home. So where's that money going? I think the fans want to see some kind of return on that investment. They've played their part. They deserve quality signings to come in. This manager has won the league despite of always all that's gone on and all the kind of impediments that were put in, and roadblocks that were put in place last season, and he negotiated them skillfully and very, very well. And so, I think it's incumbent on the board to listen to the manager now and give him what he wants to take Celtic to where they want to go, especially in this new competition. Because Celtic's, you compare it to the Champions League as a competition. I know it's a new revamp of Champions League, but Celtic's Champions League record is bargain. It's utterly abysmal. And I want a reset. I've seen it all along. I want a rethinking, a new strategy in terms of this competition. And if that means, spending money, then so be it. But this manager has deserved to be handed a transfer kitty and get the quality that he's banged on about brought to this football club. And as I say, we'll find out in the next few weeks, how much, the strengths of Celtic's ambitions and where they want to go.
Yep. It's such an important summer, but every summer is more important than the last because you've got to consolidate. They got away with it last season with their shoddy recruitment. I don't think they'll get
they get away with it because of the manager's quality, Ryan.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And Sons of Scotland coming in here and saying exactly, Tony, my money's paid into the club. All I'm asking is that they show some ambition with the fans' money. Correct, Tony. So many supporters just have to beat a very poor Rangers team at zero ambition. Now, I don't think Celtic supporters are content to keep Rangers at arm's length anymore. Been there, seen that, done that. 12 out of the last 13. I think it's natural that you want to progress, and progression for me is being ferociously competitive, both domestically, but at Champions League level. That's what Celtic created. It's been 20 years since Celtic have been competitive at that level. I know Strachan took teams to the last 16, and the more I look at that now, I think that's a miraculous achievement from Gordon Strachan, doing that back-to-back with the players that he had at his disposal and those squads.
Well.
Yeah, and a shoestring. And so that was more down to Gordon Strachan as a manager, as opposed to Celtic really pushing the boat out for someone like him. So I just feel there has to be a sea change, Ryan, in my opinion, with this new tournament. There has to be sea change in the thinking.
Not to downplay Gordon Strachan's achievements in the Champions League. I won't do that because he beat that AC Milan team that had Kaká, who was the best player in the world at that particular point. The Champions League in football as a whole has changed since those days. Yeah. It's changed. The money is now tenfold, if not even more so. It's a wash with money. You look at your Manchester Cities, you look at even Newcastle, who finished fourth in their group. They're owned by the Saudi state or the Saudi prince or whatever. The competition is completely awash with money now. Football is awash with money. It was then, but even more so now. Celtic have now got to start spending in order to not try and close the gap, but be competitive in Europe. And it's so important that they do that. if they continue to get in the Champions League every single year and get that windfall that comes with it, then if that money's as guaranteed as possible, then spend it and improve your team so that the time that I think it's the season after next that they might have to do qualifiers to get into this Champions League. I want Celtic to not even be worrying about that qualifier. I want them to be ready, not to treat it like another pre-season game. I won't go that far, but to go into that with renewed optimism that the players that you've signed in the summer, plus the players that are already there, are ready to take that next step in qualification.
Whatever investment they make, Ryan, they'll get it all back. That's what.
This is what annoys me.
They'll get it all back.
Or not annoys me. Annoys me isn't the word, but it confuses me in the sense that
so
I don't understand why they don't take that risk, because it's not a risk. Because if you bring in those best players, you will get the results that you're looking for.
And as we've spoken before, I'm not saying that Celtic go out and spend 50, 60 million pound in players. It's just, I'm not saying be financially reckless and, throw it all on black and it might come up red. I'm just talking about, loosen the purse strings a bit, open the wallet, empty your pockets for as much as you can to help this manager. He's the best thing we've got moving forward in terms of, your team structure and your setup and your own kind of rebuild in terms of your thoughts and being ambitious in Europe. So if you're not going to back this guy after what he achieved last season, then you're never going to do it. And you can bump all your gums about, having the most money that you've ever had in your history. It's no point in lying in bank accounts, isn't it? For rainy days and stuff like that. You say days when you might have to qualify. We will cross that bridge when we come to it. At this moment in time, Celtic are, as cash rich as they'll ever be. All the fans want is for them to just spend some of that and, be ambitious. Be as ambitious as you or I. These guys in the top table tell you that they're fans of the club and they want what's best for the club. Well, if they want what's best for the club, do they not want to see us be competitive in the greatest club stage and tournament on earth? I just can't get their thinking behind it. I get all that. It's for the PLC and it's dividends and all that. Yeah, I'm vastly aware of that before people point that out to me. But at some point, act like a supporter. Wear your heart in your sleeve. You have money to do this. This is not a gamble. This is ambition we're talking about, which is completely different. So I just think that this manager has earned that right to be backed for as solidly as Celtic can back any manager in their history. Just my thoughts on that.
Yep. And I completely agree. Ambition is what is required here. Pragmatism, looking ahead, being ready for the challenges that'll no doubt face Celtic in the Champions League. I don't want them to be ill prepared. I want them to be well prepared and ready for whatever's coming, because it's not just the games against the big teams. They'll have to be playing against fellow pot 4 teams too, games that you would expect Celtic to be competitive on. And I'd expect them to be competitive in every game in the Champions League, but even more so those games, because these are the teams that you're going to have to be scrapping against to get out of those dreaded sort of instant elimination spots. Want Celtic to be aiming for a playoff spot that they can have that 2-legged affair in February, March time, for a chance to get into the last 16 or last 32. I don't know the exact way in which the competition works.
We keep saying you might have 8/10. I want 10 games in the Champions, and after 10, I'm looking to. I want more.
12.
Correct. I think every Celtic supporter who's invested any money in the club and continues to do so deserves that. Deserves to see the best Celtic team out there on the park. They spend their money. They always answer the call. You want some concrete evidence that your money is being invested wisely. So I get back to it. Brendan Rodgers was saying we're a family and we look after each other. He was telling, I think that was a wee shot over the bow to the board. I've looked after you this season or the season gone past. It's time you looked after me and, give me a chance to turn this into something. Could be wrong in that, but I'm I'm confident in my own thoughts on that I think that's what he was kind of saying, you know.
We
And
know what they have to do.
it's a powerful, powerful collective, that whole Celtic family thing. And you know, it's a huge force, and it can be a huge force for good for the club moving forward if everybody just comes together and just embraces that vision for this new tournament that Celtic find themselves in.
Yep. It's all we ask for is ambition, and ask that the club is properly equipped for what is coming. And because we know it's coming, we know it's going to be a difficult season. It's going to be a challenge on four fronts when you add the Scottish Cup, the League Cup, domestic, and Champions League. So it's going to be a busy season. They need to be properly equipped to deal with all of those competitions. Only way they can do that by getting rid of the deadwood in the team, by replacing that with genuine quality. Easier said than done. I think there'll be some players that are left in the middle and they might not have any game time until maybe getting to January and looking for game time. But yeah, I think they just need to clear out a mini rebuild, because I want them to keep some of the best pieces, but I want them to improve in some areas too. Keep the core, keep Kyogo, Carter Vickers, potentially Hatate if he doesn't want to leave, McGregor. You want that core of players, Alistair Johnson too, and supplement them and give them players around them that will improve the team further. Because if you put better players around them, then those players that already exist will become better players in their company too. I think that's exciting.
You know my thoughts on that, Ryan. You buy better players, you become a good teammate. It's just, I mean, rocket science. You know what I mean? So there you go. But over 500 people joining us live. Incredible, guys. Thank you very much. We ran a bit longer today because we felt that it was the right thing to do, and we'll be maybe running a wee bit longer during the course of the close season. Hazel Finn saying, good chat today, guys. Enjoyed it. Thanks very much. Regular contributor. Thank you, Hazel. Great pod today, guys. Enjoyed the chat. Leslie, thank you. Thanks, guys. It says, where is it? Oh, trying to flick the comment up, but there you go. I can't find it. Good show, Jerry Smith. Cheers, Jerry. Thank you, Francis. Grabbing along another regular contributor. Thanks very much. Appreciate it. Yeah, close season's tough for us all. We miss our daily dose of Celtic, don't we, Ryan? We really do. And, you know, it's always, you know, transfer gossip and rumours are great, but we all want signings, don't we? But yeah, it's Robert Gibson saying it's saving people from the tedium of the close season. Saving us as well, Robert, to be fair. It's a labour of love for us. But yeah, enjoyed that today, Ryan. All good, eh?
Yep. Enjoyed doing these shows. We were on a wee bit later as well this morning, so I thought we would make it up on the other side of it by going a wee bit longer. Went a wee bit longer than I thought we were, but plenty to talk about. I think we got through every rumour. In fact, we didn't mention Tommy Conway, but there's been talks about him as well. See how he does in the Euros for Scotland. Well done in his Scotland place, but an interesting one for a year left in his deal.
We need to keep things for later on, Ryan. You know, can't just throw it all in one show. We need stuff to talk. So maybe Tommy Conway's name will come up, and we'll maybe do that. You kind of did it there, but we'll maybe do a keep, get rid type thing show at some point moving forward. We can get the contributors' views on that as well. Quite like the thought of that, but and we'll kind of discuss them one by one. That's something that's I think would interest a lot of people. But thank you, guys. We say thank you to our sponsors, MPH Boilers and Weissman, or MPH Group and Weissman Boilers. Remember that they've got the store opening in Dunfermline June the 14th to the 16th, and you can enter yourself into a draw and maybe win a 4-night stay in Las Vegas, complete with a helicopter tour. You can RSVP now at www.launch.mph.group to secure your spot in that. And also, we say to you guys, this ticker tape running along the bottom, subscribe to the Celtic Way. It's £4 for 4 months of top quality journalism covering the club you love. www.celticway.co.uk/subscribe. You can read Ryan's article on there about Bosun Law from Omar Risa. You can read Thomas Flogo's article on Flavius Danelli. What was his name again? You're muted, Ryan.
Daniliuc.
I've just lost the plot there at the end. There you go. Yeah, so all sorts of stuff on the website, guys. Enjoy it. Whatever you're doing, have a wonderful day. We'll be back tomorrow, myself and Ryan. Yeah, because Hamish is away.
Absolutely.
Yeah, might bring in the odd guest now and again, Ryan, for to make a trio. But we'll see how we are moving forward with that. But Hamish is away for a couple of weeks, I believe. Is that right, Ryan?
Yep, at the Euros. So we need to bring in some guests as well, because I'm sure you're off at the end of those 2 weeks as well.
At
So
some point,
I'm on my recruitment drive as well. So there'll be some less than familiar faces on, I would say.
But you're bringing in quality, Ryan. Is that what you're going to do?
Quality, not quantity. Yep, absolutely.
Guys, have a wonderful day. Take care. We'll see you all tomorrow. We'll do it all again.
Cheers, guys.